call us to order. And we'll start with the least, well, maybe not, contentious issue, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Are there any changes to the minutes?
None.
I found none.
I was not in attendance, but it looked good.
Me neither, which makes me wonder if we can vote.
Yes, you do not. You're voting to accept the minutes. I mean, yes, to accept the minutes as opposed to approve the minutes, and non-attending members can vote.
Okay, I'll move to a vote then, and I say aye. Lee, aye.
Hands aye.
John, I.
Strange eye.
EDI.
Carol?
Lundy night.
Okay. Thank you. I'll name you next time. I forgot. Sorry about that.
Don't do it again.
Bad process. No, let's not do it again. Okay, so we have the second item, which is the Town Hall Designer Selection Committee, which I don't actually know what it is, so I'll just defer to Stephanie or Wayne, whoever wants to explain that.
Okay, I will explain it. So everybody knows that at Fall Town Meeting, the town voted for the restoration and renovations to the town hall. That needs to go out to bid, and then the designer needs to be selected. And it was suggested that that committee be comprised of the director of Public Works, the assistant town engineer, the director of planning, and members from the Community Preservation Committee, the Historical Commission, and the Municipal Building Committee. So you are being asked to appoint one of your members to that selection committee. It's expected that there will be between 2 and 4 meetings held in the evening beginning in March.
And is that it, Stephanie? It's just going to be those meetings, or is this going to be?
Yes, it's just again, it will be to review the responses from the bidders, the folks that respond to the design. I'm guessing it's an RFP and not a bid because it's design work.
So my first question would be, if I can, I don't know, how are we going to run the meeting, Jim? Are we going to go around? I don't want to overstep here.
I wouldn't worry. There's only a few of us. Go right ahead.
So I know in the past we have discussed with projects like this whether we're going to have overseers throughout the duration of the project. Are we still going to be doing that?
I think the intention is yes. That's something that we'd be doing.
But this is just to pick the designer. That's the purpose of this committee.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like when the Historical Commission selected the people to do the historical surveys. There was a competition, and there was a subcommittee of the commission that ended up choosing the people.
Right. But I think, John, to your point, yes, there will be also someone who will be a liaison, not overseer, but liaison with each of the projects. Something we'll have to discuss for the ones that were approved, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so roughly, and this will go to whoever the appointee is, but there's an outline of the process that will be followed for this. So step number 4 after all the other stuff, which isn't totally relevant right now. So the request for qualifications for each contract subject to the procedures will be advertised. And, of course, it will have all the relevant information. Then what the committee will do is evaluate the applicants based on the criteria of prior similar experience, past performance on public and private projects, financial stability, identity, and qualifications of the consultants who will work with the applicants on the project and any other criteria. And the committee shall select at least 3 finalists. Finalists may be required to appear for an interview or provide additional information to the committee, provided that all finalists are afforded an equal opportunity to do so. And then the committee shall rank the finalists in order of qualifications. And that will be transmitted to the approving body, which I believe is the town administrator as the chief procurement officer. So as Ed pointed out, it's very similar to the process for selecting the consultants that did the surveys. Greg is familiar with this process. It's the same process that we followed for the master plan consultants.
Did that for
Names out of
Oaks
a hat.
Ames as well years ago when they did their master plan for Oaks Ames.
Greg, Greg, do you feel comfortable if you've already been through this process representing the commission?
I wasn't volunteering you, Greg, so.
Thanks. No.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing it. I'm involved in a lot of things, so I stay quiet. If I didn't want to take it from someone else, but if no one else steps up, I don't have a problem doing it. It doesn't.
I wouldn't mind doing it either. I'm
Oh.
in the process as well.
Then go. It's all yours, Ed. It's all yours.
That's fine. Interest is the most important aspect of this, so. Good. So have you worked it out between you and Ed, Greg, or?
Ed always wins.
Well, there's no reason why Greg couldn't be the historical commission representative, so.
Right. Anyone else have an interest before we move on? Don't hear an overwhelming response. So congratulations, Ed. I think you are it. I don't see a need for a formal action since it was a volunteer. Okay, and Ed, if you just at whatever report you want to do very briefly as we meet, just keep us afoot as to what happens. Please.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another item that was added. This comes from the project that we funded last year, which is the practice field construction. And I believe the issue is that the bids that came in were in excess of the grant that was issued to the tune of 80,000. Is that the right number?
Right, it's some of the work came in over what was anticipated, and then there's additional work. There's completing the fencing around the entire field, which I think may have come in a little higher. I actually had something else in hand for this. And then they're adding dugouts and electrical wiring and piping to the scoreboard were additional items.
So the issue is we're not having a grant round this year since we have the new process starting. But since this is a project that was funded in the past, we've had others that have come back for additional funds. Do we want to entertain additional funds out of this year's non-round, but this year's town meeting towards this project or not?
Well, I've got a question or two. Is this work? It wasn't part of the scope, obviously, so
Well,
why?
some of it was, the walking path around the field was, they have touch up and landscape berm, which I think was and just wasn't included. But what I know wasn't included were the dugouts.
And the electrical wiring, I imagine.
Yeah,
What was the original grant amount? Does anybody know?
You know, I had this all in my notes and then I got all discombobulated with the breakout session. I can put my hands on it pretty quickly.
I get a little concerned, so I have to be proven wrong in my thought process when something comes up that high over what was approved in the original proposal. I just look at it, if I went out to bid on something like that and it's going to run that much higher, I'd be eating some of it because I'd want to maintain my reputation for not knowing exactly what I was going to be getting into. Usually there's a built-in sludge in the proposal that they could say, listen, don't worry about it. We're a little over. But it just seems like $80,000 is quite a bit over. I mean, is it just assumed that you just go back to CPC or whatever group and just that?
Actually, this
I'm
came,
missing something.
so they did not come directly. And I was not approached by Bill Matthews to put this on the agenda. They went and they put it on the capital budget, and it was a capital budget request. And it was suggested from, just because finances are going to be so tight that maybe the CPC would have an appetite for funding the additional. And thank you. Wayne just texted me that the original grant amount was for $268,000.
So now we're close to $250,000, obviously.
268 is over $250,000.
I'm sorry, 350. What am I saying? Yeah, just seeing if you were awake. So now we're close to 350. Again, I just have this thing about, wow, that's such a big chunk. Is it just automatically, okay, it's going to be a capital budget. Let's just go to CPC. They'll bail us out. I know it's the taxpayers' money and it fits into it, but I just get a little concerned that more of a precedent is going to be set. It's not a precedent, actually. What am I saying? Because this has happened multiple times. I don't know. I need some thoughts on this too.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. You and I have both been on this board for a long time. And for better or worse, I think a few things have happened over the past decade. I think this board has been viewed, I mean, I've heard it come out of the mouths of folks that, okay, well, we have so much money. It's a good fallback. And I've always brought up concerns with construction funding because so often we've had such flimsy backup on it. Now, I'm not saying that was the case here. And certainly things are extremely expensive to build during COVID, and there can be scope creep. And I can take a little solace in that, okay, this is a town project and it's at the high school. And, it's in a third, but okay, so it's another 80,000. It's tough times for the town. And it doesn't have to be a precedent. It's what up to this committee. But frankly, in the past times that I've tried to, shake the trees and wake people up to fiscal responsibility, I've hasn't been very successful, whether that's my lack of communication skills or people don't really care. But I don't know if this is really the project for us to put our foot down. But I think it would be nice to have, it seems more and more the bureaucracy is taking over this board and not the citizens that are on it. But that's up to us to change.
So are you agreeing with me, Greg, or?
Well, I am. I'm agreeing with you. There's issues about this, not the specific project, but this, absolutely, when you do, I mean, I hear, I haven't, this is the first I've heard of it. I didn't even see it on the agenda. I don't know how I missed that, but the 80,000, I don't know what the breakdown is. But it's certainly part of it is scope creep. But again, if when they were before us 2 years ago, if they were looking for 350 instead of 250, I suspect it still would have passed. We had the same thing with the town hall, but again, these are buildings, these are properties that are for everybody. But I think it's up to, I said what I said because I think it's, honestly, I think it's time for this board. If we want to change things to, we need to get back to where we used to be, and visionaries and ideas and bringing projects forward. Not just, we seem to be just sitting here waiting for things to be brought to us.
But, along with what we're talking about, why are we spending all this money on appraisals if they're not even going to be close to being accurate? And I understand there are unforeseen issues in the project. I get it. But again, why are we spending the money on all these appraisals and it's not even coming close in a lot of cases? And we can go through a whole list. And bringing up what you just said, Greg, if we're going to even consider this, I'd want to see a breakdown of everything. I just wouldn't want to be, my personal vote, just giving a blanket and say, you know what, it's a good thing, let's just do it. Cut them a check for 80 grand. I'd want to see a lot more involved.
Well, they would still have to, and this is really the question, is does the board have an appetite for considering this? And they would have to submit an application. They'd have to submit a formal application. It's whether you would have an appetite for that outside of the next round. And outside isn't even the right word. I mean, the board made a decision to take a year off from accepting applications, start the new process, which, to Greg's point, in a way gets you where I think you are trying to get to, and working more with people. And to your point, John, of really fleshing out during the application process what a project is going to include, and making sure that to the best of your ability, you've costed it out effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, it's exactly how I feel. That's why we're paying. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but appraisals has always been a sticking point. It's a necessity. We all know that, but it's a sticking point with me because they're so high, so expensive. And then they come back to us in a year or two. Well, we didn't figure this into it. We didn't figure this into it. Wait a minute. There's something not jiving here. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Those are my thoughts.
Other thoughts? I mean, the issue is, do we make an exception to the process of not having a grants round and allow in a revision of an existing project? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no. But for the reasons that Stephanie said, this is a tight time for the town, and it is the high school. So I wanted to bring that forward to you and say, what do you think? Is this a reasonable thing to ask them to bring a proposal to us or not? So I understand that there's concern about process. Is this a good thing to do? And that's the question we're addressing right now, I guess. Do we want to consider this? Are there yeses? Dennis?
What happens if we
Here we go.
don't have the appetite for it and it has to wait another year? It's not going to wait another year, correct? And at one point, Stephanie, weren't scoreboards stuff, they weren't allowed, and that law changed, didn't it?
I'm sorry, you broke up, Dennis, and I only caught a bit of what you were saying, asking.
If we didn't have the appetite for this project, what would happen to it? It would still move forward, correct? And
Not
that,
necessarily. It would, again, they've put it on the capital budget, and decisions will be made as to what items advanced on the capital budget to town meeting.
Stephanie, I'm sorry. I jumped on the call right after you explained, or whoever started and explained what this budget, what the shortfall was for 80,000. Can you just give me just a quick, this is, I'm assuming on the fields at the high school?
Right. This is on the practice fields, and there are items. Some of them were not included, dugouts, but items like, I've been told by Bill Matthews that the path that goes around that was part of the project, there's the walking path.
Yeah,
came over budget. The quotes were higher than the budget amount and the amount that they were awarded. So
Well,
it's a
my-
combination of some
My
additional.
interest in this is to have the project completed so it's useful. And so if there are concerns about completing the project, I have much less interest in add-ons. If there were things that were added later, I don't feel compelled for us to fund those, honestly.
Yeah, so what was in the original, what wasn't in the original plan were the concrete pads for the dugouts, the berm landscaping, and the wiring for the scoreboard, which is going to be moved from the Parkview field. The fencing and walking path costs that were planned originally to encompass the entire field were higher than the original cost estimates.
Do you have a money breakdown?
I do. Let me share my screen with you.
so the walking path, we're talking about the Bluestone path that I think Neil Levine and I believe it was money from one of the local developers that we're talking, is that the path that we're
Wow,
talking
actually.
about?
So it looks like 35,000 is new work that wasn't part of the grant, and 45 is items that I guess were underestimated, if I read this correct.
Well, the project, wasn't it also, it was delayed a number of years.
It was approved in 2018.
Okay, so maybe year and a half,
The
maybe
same
it was
year as
delayed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
17, actually.
I'd have to look at them.
I have a question about, these are practice fields. Who is going to practice on this field?
The high school teams.
Team of
There-
what,
there's a-
baseball or softball?
I think it's a multi-purpose field. It's quite large.
Soccer and football, not diamond sports.
No, it's the I thought the dugouts were for softball. I was sure that's what.
Oh,
Bill-
that's right. There's a softball field.
I
You're
thought
right.
it said donuts. Yeah, you know, and it's interesting. I was up in this neck of the woods the other day. I was going Shady Rest, and there's a small cul-de-sac. The name of the street, I forget. Forgive me. I'm only chair of the planning board. I should know that. But it abuts the
Parkview.
Thank you.
Parkview Circle.
It abuts the field, and yeah, there's this sort of hideous. I feel bad for the folks that live there. There's this hideous, 5-foot berm of earth. All the trees have been cut down, and this what used to be a nice wooded area wide open to this doesn't look very nice. And I remember thinking, wow, did we approve that? I don't remember they were losing all these trees. So anyway, I certainly respect all of John's earlier points, and I agree with much of them. Sounds like we could do one or two things here. We could say, okay, let's fund the parts that were over and the added scope items we don't have to, or we could say, well, it's again, at least it's for us. It's not a property that's on state property or a property that we don't own. This is for the town's good, and it's up to us if we're concerned with precedent, or if we're concerned with process, or if we're concerned with accurate pricing. That's up to us to demand that in the future. Yes.
I agree with points that John made as well. And I certainly don't think we should fund any additional things that weren't in the original bid. The overages I'm much more likely to support, I guess. If we don't support it, there's still a possibility they can complete this through the capital budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at it that way, if the board were would consider funding the unanticipated higher costs of the items that were a part of the original, then they could still put the other items like the dugouts and the wiring and what was it? The
Concrete pads.
landscaping, yeah. Well, I think of those as one because of course you can't
Right.
have dugouts without concrete pads, but they could still put that on the capital budget.
So what's your thoughts? Shall we move? One idea would be to make a motion for the higher, the overrun costs, which could be, as was pointed out, due to the delay in the project starting, and not fund any additional items or not fund anything. So does
Just
the motion make sense?
If you don't mind, Jim, what was the original cost for the appraisal to do this, the design work? Does anybody know?
Why do we have an appraisal?
That was,
I think that's what John's referencing when I think he means the budget, the original budget.
Yeah. Correct.
so Wayne, you
Oops.
I believe it was 260.
Yeah, I don't understand the question. The application and the town meeting warrant in May 2017 was 268,000.
268
Correct.
in 2018.
Was the Stephanie or
17.
Wayne, if either one of you know, was just looking at the items, was the fence, it says complete the fence, was that part of the original,
That was my next question.
or is that added work?
No, I think the fence was original. I had that up a minute ago. I'm trying to juggle between my,
Well, to help move things along, I'd make a motion that we, support any of the items that were over budget or had cost overruns, but none of the new work.
I'll second that.
Okay, I think what we're doing is encouraging that the high school send us an application for funding. We're not approving funding at this point. There's been no application.
I thought we talked about just going forward, whether we'd look at this for town meeting. Isn't that the
Right.
same stuff?
I mean, the word Greg.
I know we're not voting to approve it tonight.
Right.
It's not on the agenda.
Yep. Okay. Other discussion then?
Done.
If I could interject, I heard a motion from Strange, a second from Hands, to encourage an application.
Can't hear.
Is there someone talking way in the background?
That's Wayne.
Not
Wait.
hear me? Oh, that is so frustrating. Good Lord. Did this help at all?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, yes, this computer, sometimes it's just, you can't hear me and sometimes you can. I heard a motion from Strange, a second from Hands, to, what would the wording be? Encourage an application for, what is the dollar amount? Would it be $35,000 for the?
Well, for the items that were part of the original project and met with overruns.
It sounded like 45,000.
Why don't we let Bill identify what those are in his application?
Yes, right. I'm just thinking ballpark figure. Okay. Ready to vote? This is just to encourage the application or allow this in process. So Lee, aye.
Hands, aye.
Ventresco, aye.
Greg,
GDI.
okay.
Strange, aye.
Carol,
Dean, aye.
Meredith,
Keach, aye.
okay, thank you. We're at the point of moving to executive session, which will require some changes. So
Manipulation. So before the board votes, I just want to go through what the process is going to be. We had hoped to do breakout rooms. I'm just going to quickly say that we set the meeting up as a webinar. Webinars don't support breakout rooms. So we are going to have to leave this meeting and join a new meeting that is not open to the public if the board votes to go into executive session. What we will do is Tisha's going to leave the meeting now. She is going to email everyone the link to that executive session meeting. So again, if you vote to go into executive session, we'll all leave the meeting. You'll need to go to your emails and log in through the new link.
Okay, and this would make it awkward for us to come back into open session, is that right?
It would, yes, because it would make it impossible because we would have ended the meeting.
Okay, because should we do anything, we would likely, if we decide to have interest in some of these proposals that are coming forward, we would have to perhaps authorize John's favorite thing, which is spending some money on appraisals. And so we won't be able to do that at this meeting. We would have to do that in a subsequent meeting. So we need a motion to.
Jim, I'm not sure that you couldn't vote to authorize those.
Executive funds?
I'm sorry?
We could do that in an executive session?
Yes.
Okay, then it's not a problem. I'm wrong. I thought in the past we've had that issue, but I guess being the senior member here. Okay. So again, back to a motion to adjourn and to move to executive session.
And if people can hear me, I'd interject. It's a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to public meeting with Danielson, Beitler, and Hal Dorenzo present. I think you actually have to name the people beyond the board.
Okay.
You do.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, to go into executive session, not to return to open session.
Second.
Did you state the purpose for which?
For the purpose of land acquisition.
Discussions around potential
Discussions about
strategies
potential
for land.
strategies for land application, and that we allow Danielson, Bittler, and Hal Dorenzo attend.
Okay. Well, good job, Dennis.
With coaching.
Have a second?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry.
So this is a roll call vote. Lee, aye. John? Greg?
Strange eye.
Dennis?
EDI.
Carol?
Lundin, aye.
Meredith?
Keach, aye.
Okay. Again, that's just the order on my screen. So, okay, we'll
You
see you.
didn't ask me. Hey, wait a
Okay.
second.
Oh,
Everyone check their
hands?
emails,
Hands?
please.
I haven't got a real face there yet. You know, I'm kind
Okay.
of.
Everyone check their emails. I'm ending the
Okay.
meeting.
Thank